A few years ago, when I was living in Denmark, there was a story on the news one day about an incident that happened in the European Parliament. They were having a debate about equal pay for women, and one member, a man from Poland, got up and said that women should earn less than men because they are weaker, smaller, and less intelligent.
What century was this?
This man was 74 years old and a far-right politician known for his racist, sexist, and anti-Semitic comments. So this was not unusual for him to say such things. Fortunately, a female member of parliament from Spain immediately took the floor to rebut his statement. She said, "According to your opinion, I shouldn't have the right to be here as a member of parliament. And I know that it hurts you and bothers you that today women can sit in the House to represent citizens with the same rights as you. I am here to defend all European women from men like you." And it made quite a stir in the news in Europe. And a few days later, he was suspended from the parliament for 10 days. And since 2018, he has no longer been a member of the parliament. So we might find his statement shocking, but the idea of women being less intelligent than men seems quite common. 2 years ago, the journal American Psychologist reported on some studies that showed that in workplaces, women get passed over when employers want brainy workers or need help with intellectually demanding tasks. Persistent gender biases still cast men as intellectually superior to women, meaning women are less likely to be hired for or seen as capable of handling smart roles, like those commonly associated with fields like physics and engineering. So this attitude is actually quite strange because studies show that female students earn higher grades in all levels of the education system and are more likely to attend a university and graduate than their male peers. But these academic achievements appear to do little to sway the prejudice, which, according to the study reported in the journal, is so deeply held it can be observed in adults of both genders and even in children as young as 5. And it's one of the reasons that women were initially denied voting rights, because a number of learned men in the 19th century made certain statements about women. For example, women do not possess the same level of rational thinking that men do, that they are incapable of abstract thought and could not understand issues of justice and were suited only to domestic work. Yeah, supposedly. Even Sigmund Freud made some such statement. Also, early brain studies comparing mass and volumes of brains between the sexes concluded that women were intellectually inferior because their brains are smaller and lighter. But this is the past, fortunately. During the 20th century, the scientific consensus has shifted to the view that gender plays no role in intelligence. So actually, many studies have been done, and they do have mixed results. Some find that males do a bit better in certain areas, for example, mathematics, but others find no differences. In a 2008 study paid for by the National Science Foundation in the United States, researchers stated that girls perform as well as boys on standardized math tests. Although 20 years ago, high school boys performed better than girls in math, the researchers found this is no longer the case. And the reason is simple. Girls used to take fewer advanced math courses than boys, but now they are taking just as many. So it seems that one factor, if there is any appearance of difference in intelligence, like in mathematics and so on, one factor may be the kind of encouragement that children receive from parents, teachers, and peers. So due to this stereotype, if people believe that boys are smarter than girls, then boys may receive more encouragement to take courses and pursue careers in math, science, and engineering, whereas girls may receive less of this kind of encouragement. So I can't help but wonder if this might be at least one of the reasons that in the past, Tibetan nuns were not given the opportunity to study the higher philosophical subjects that monks were able to study. I heard from one nun who was studying in a nunnery outside of Tibet that some of their male teachers were not very encouraging. One geshe from Tibet would sometimes tell the nuns that they were like goats and incapable of understanding the higher philosophical studies. And this is just in the last couple of years. Fortunately, His Holiness doesn't seem to believe this stereotype, because since coming into exile, he's worked very hard to ensure that all Tibetan children are able to receive a good education and that Tibetan nuns have access to the same study program that the monks do. And then in recent years, since 2012, nuns have been able to receive the geshe degree, which is roughly equivalent to a PhD. And currently there are 44 nuns who have been awarded the Geshe degree. So a number of Buddha's female disciples showed exceptional intelligence and wisdom. So I'd just like to tell the stories about some of these. So one was a woman named Bada Kundala Kesa. And before she met the Buddha, she was a Jain nun, the Jain religion. And according to this book, I was surprised that it says that the Jain religion was the first to establish an order of nuns and thus enable women to engage full-time in spiritual study and practice. So this woman was a Jain nun. She mastered all the Jain teachings, but then became dissatisfied and left that Sangha and went traveling here and there in search of the wisest teachers. So what she would do is she'd go into a village and she'd sort of set up a challenge, anybody who would want to debate with her. And she engaged in debate with intelligent people, learned people, but she never found anybody who was equal to her. But then one day she met Shariputra. She was in Sravasti, and she encountered Shariputra, and they engaged in a debate. And first she asked him questions, and he was able to answer all her questions with ease, even the most difficult ones. And then it came his turn, and he asked her a question that she found difficult to answer. And so then she asked if he would be her teacher. But instead, Shariputra sent her to the Buddha. And the Buddha recognized her depth of understanding and gave her instruction. Hearing his words, she attained immediate enlightenment. Instant enlightenment. And then in a rare gesture of respect, the Buddha ordained her by simply saying, "Come, Bada." And so the Buddha considered Bada first among the nuns in the speed with which she gained nirvana. But she did have many years of study and practice prior to even meeting the Buddha. And then another of the Buddha's female disciples who was very learned was Dhammadinna. And she was initially married to Visakha, who was an eminent city of Rajgir. And Visakha met the Buddha and was so impressed by his teachings that he decided to be a monk right away. And so he came home and told his wife and asked her what she would like to do. And she said, "Well, I would like to renounce and become a nun." And so he helped her to move to the nuns community. And so she became a nun. She practiced very intensively and attained the highest insight. Sometime after that, she went back to visit her former husband, who had changed his mind about becoming a monk. So he was still a layman. And he was very curious to know more about the Buddha's teaching. So he asked her lots and lots of questions, very profound questions. And she was able to answer all his questions with ease. And finally, he asked her about nirvana. And Dhammadinna said, "You will never get to the end of your questionings. For in nirvana, the higher life merges to find its goal and its consummation." And then she said, "If you want to know more, you should go and ask the Buddha." So he went to the Buddha and he told the Buddha about this conversation that he'd had with Dhammadinna. And the Buddha praised Dhammadinna, saying, "Dhammadinna possesses learning and great wisdom. Had you asked me, I would have answered exactly as she did. Her answer was correct, and you should treasure it accordingly." So because of what the Buddha said, Dhammadinna's responses to Visakha's questions were declared Buddha Vachana, the word of the Buddha, and became part of the one of the collections of scriptures called the Majjhima Nikaya. So this is a rare example of Buddha Vachana, Buddha's word uttered by a woman disciple. It indicates an equivalence between the Buddha's wisdom and her own. And the Buddha considered Dhammadinna to be the foremost among the nuns in the gift of teaching. So we can see by these stories that having a female form is not at all a barrier to attaining the highest insights. So this idea that women are less intelligent than men is really just a stereotype that we should ignore if we ever encounter it. And also, it's our mind that attains knowledge and realizations, insight. And mind is neither male nor female. So we should maintain the confidence that we have every ability to learn the Dharma, practice it, and transform our minds into enlightened minds, just as did the Buddha and many of his followers over the centuries, both male and female.